thank our sponsor, Guarantee Rate Mortgage Company. For all your mortgage needs, give branch manager Cora Holbrook a call at area code 781-342-0252. Guarantee Mortgage is located at 75 State Street in downtown Boston. Guarantee Rate Mortgage, guaranteed to exceed your expectation. You know, Dr. Bradley, what a lively hour.
Well, people are getting up early in the morning. I don't know if it's the weather or it's the time of year or what, but it was the times that we would come in here, especially when we first started, Larry. You would get no one calling. It would just be a true round table discussion with no outside participation. Right. Yeah. That's not the case. So that just speaks to how well we have grown.
Well, absolutely. From a little room there to the penthouse suite.
The penthouse suite.
right.
We're doing well.
We're doing well. No, but it's also the dedication, and I can't thank you enough for being on this ride. And Denise was with us for a long time. Hopefully, at some point, we can get her back with us.
I got to call her. I haven't heard from her in a while.
I know. I same thing. But it is a commitment, folks. Like I said, we're not compensated for coming in here, but we do it. It's our contribution to educate and inform the community. Yeah. Absolutely. You know, and that's what it takes. You know, to do that. You know, but like I said, you know, these issues don't impact us as much as they do others because we've been able to navigate through them. But folks, there are very few folks out there who are willing to step up. You know, I appreciate Cliff's comments and kind words, you know, of acknowledgement of the work that I do out there in the community, because it is my community, regardless to where I sleep at night. This is my community. Right. This is where I was born and raised. And even when I moved, I come every day.
Well, but the other thing too is that even where we are, you know, I am in a similar situation. God has blessed me, but I'm still black.
Right.
And I'm in America.
And wherever you go to remind you, right?
Absolutely. It doesn't matter how well you're educated, what you have achieved. Right. You still need to be able to navigate a world that doesn't like you, doesn't want you, doesn't value you.
We're seeing that more and more. So, Dr. Bradley, I want to get into, while we're waiting for a call from City Councilor Ed Flynn, who's supposed to call in at 8 o'clock hour, as well as there's been a lot of back and forth and conversation regarding the Boston Police Patrolman's contract that they negotiated and was ratified in the mayor's group. But you know, depending on who you talk to, some folks say the police got a lot, the mayor's office say they got a lot. So this is just a note from them. So Wu scores important wins in new police contract. And it says convicted child molester Patrick Rose, convicted child molester and former police union official, represented everything that was wrong with the system of police discipline, unworthy of this city. It was a system that allowed a long suspected abuser, the subject of a sustained internal affairs complaint, to remain on the force for more than 20 years. But he wasn't the only bad cop who brought disgrace to the department, even when the department tried to fire officers for egregious or even criminal conduct. Some were restored. So it goes on and on. So, you know, what the mayor is basically saying that this contract allows her a little bit more latitude when it comes to terminating police officers who are
watch out, black officers.
And this is where it concerns me. It alarms me because we all know historically, you
know who they're coming from,
right. Right,
you know who they're coming for.
Exactly.
And as they increase the contract, all right, which means that there's more money being spent for police services. Yep. That money is going to be is not meant for people that look like you and me.
Right.
So watch out, black officers. Right. You'll be held to a tougher, you know, a standard than people that do not look like.
Absolutely. Well, this is, you know, why I say, you know, folks, be careful what you wish for, because sometimes your wishes may not come true, you know. And so when you are, you know, the system is already somewhat geared to disenfranchise you, and you see that, and I have to be brutally honest, because as I serve as a commissioner on the post, and I see the disparity in how, in my opinion, some folks have been getting away with things for quite some time, and now there's accountability across the board, as it should be. I'm starting to see, because you can't ignore the race of the individuals, because you see it right there in front of you, that this has been a problem that has been hidden and not dealt with and been moved around like chess pieces.
Yeah, and hopefully the commission has the authority to call and point that out and deal with that, because that's not fair.
Oh, it does.
Okay.
It does.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's why having it being in the law allows you the powers to do that. And that upsets some folks, because a lot of that can no longer, those shenanigans can no longer take place because there is oversight. And with that said, we were waiting for our guest to arrive. He has arrived. Ed Flynn, who is the president of the city council, for a few more weeks, right? I mean, I think is your term going to be over, Ed Flynn? Good morning. Welcome to the roundtable.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
A little closer, right?
It's great to be with you, and you're exactly right. I have another couple weeks to go. My term ends January 1st. They'll elect a new city council president to the body, but I do have a couple of weeks left. But
so now, because you guys changed the order, it used to be 1 year term, and then you run. So now it's the president of the council is there for 2 years, which kind of makes a little bit more sense, right? Because you get going, and then you've got to figure out in another year you get another person coming in. So you serve 2 years. Are you eligible to run for president again, or are you ineligible?
Ineligible.
Oh, okay.
Basically, term limits. So there will be a new council president, and the process has already started to elect a new president.
Okay.
So my colleagues are actively pursuing it right now.
So now the
Can I ask a question? And this is for the audience education. What exactly does the council president does? What are the responsibilities of that?
It's a great question. The city council president has specific roles. One of them is creating committees.
Okay.
And assigning who will chair specific committees, who will be the vice chair, and who will be the members of the committee. The other aspect is they're in charge of, they supervise the city council central staff, and that includes the city council staff director, the attorney for the city council, along with legislative and administrative duties. It's more of an administrative position than I thought it was originally. It's a job where you have to be in the office as city council president every day of the week, and you can't really spend all of your time on politics. You have to spend your time supervising, managing the city council staff, providing your city council colleagues with the best support you can. And also, it is the official leader, obviously, of the city council, so you represent the city council at specific duties and ceremonial roles as well. If the mayor leaves the city council president is the acting mayor for that period of time as well.
Got it.
And you get the bigger office.
You get a bigger office, and you have the ability to hire one additional staff member as well.
Okay.
So but there seems to be more cons than pros with it. You don't get as much time with your constituents and out there, but you've always had a pretty good staff. And I tell people a lot of times, the person at the top is the person the face you see, but the people really doing the work, if you have a good support staff, and they don't get as much credit as they should sometimes. I know I saw you look like, those are the folks.
You're exactly right. Not to brag, but in 6 years, I haven't had a staff member leave other than one person. And in this body, your staff is constantly changing. And I credit my staff with their hard work, the attention to detail. They work extremely hard. They're professional. And I wouldn't be successful without my staff. I probably get 150, 200 emails a day.
Wow.
So I could not possibly answer them all without my staff. So they do a lot of the legwork, logistics, constituent service is a critical role. There's nothing glamorous about being a city councilor. There's nothing sexy about it. It's showing up to the office every day. It's returning phone calls. It's returning emails, constituent services, neighborhood services. If you don't like that grunt work, you're in the wrong business, because you can't mail this job. And it's like a police officer or a nurse. You can't do it from home. You have to be in the office every day and engaged. You have to know who to call when there's an issue. You don't necessarily need to call the commissioner of the Parks Department, but you need to know who's the janitor, or who sweeps the streets, or who's able to get a basketball rim put up. That's the job of a city councilor.
So we've got calls coming in. It's people have started early already this morning. We're going to get the call in a second, but I'm just wondering if I need to reposition myself where you are from Dr. Bradley. Because if I'm not mistaken, you served in the Navy, right?
I served in the Navy.
Well, I'm an Army guy.
You're
I'm an Army guy.
We have a friendly competition.
We have a friendly competition in Foxborough.
I just picked up on that. I'm
And
like,
he's in Fox. He lives in Foxborough.
Right. So I said, "Wow, I've got an Army and Navy guys here this morning." So if I
Go Army. Go Army.
That's right.
If I need to adjust myself here, I just
No. We're all on the same team.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Different responsibilities, but on the same team.
So we know who each other is rooting for. I just thought that was interesting. I was looking, wait a minute, I said, I know Press Councilor Flynn was in the Navy. Dr. Bradley's an Army guy. We may have a problem here.
No. I mean, the people who attack us will have problems.
There you
but
go.
we'll come together.
So we've got some questions, but we want to let our listening audience have first shot. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable with MAMLEO and City Council President Ed Flynn. Caller, you there? All right. So while we're having some technical glitches this morning, let me also, I want to dispel, because I've heard you on this broadcast, and I heard you, in my opinion, unfairly taking attacks because you're from South Boston. And I tell people, this is what I'm saying, the civil rights movement, a lot of issues that took place, it was people coming together regardless of race. And I have to say that the support from folks like yourself, City Councilor, Senator Nick Collins and his family, I have gotten a lot of support from the Dorchester South Boston area. It is not that Louise Day Hicks, Dorchester South Boston. Your family has never been from that era, but I mean, I think there was always that stigma, that stereotype from that community, and I find that it is refreshing and working where people are working together. I call Senator Collins, his family, about issues. They respond. I call you. We had an issue with my president. I called you. I got a response back. We got a response back from you, and we called some of our elected officials of color, and we got no response. And so people need to know that people are being responsive, and that don't be looking at the outer shell of a person and judging that they won't help or because of their zip code. I felt like I needed to address that this morning.
No, thank you, Larry. And you mentioned my friend and colleague, Senator Collins. I was about to get up at 6 o'clock this morning, and at 5 minutes of 6, Senator Collins called me, mentioning an issue that he had with MAMLEO, and he knew I was coming on the program. But he wanted me to stress the respect that he has for this organization.
He's going to be on our 9 o'clock.
He's going to be on 9 o'clock. Yeah. But what I know in Dr. Bradley and Larry is everybody is important, and everybody deserves respect and dignity. And any time someone calls an elected official, for that person or that organization, it's the most important call they're going to make, not only in that day, but probably in that month, maybe. And if it wasn't important, they wouldn't call.
Right.
They're not calling to shoot the breeze with you. So I take those calls and I treat those calls as if they're the most important call of the day, because they are. And that's how we grew up. Senator Collins, Councilor Michael Flaherty, as well. But it's about helping people, doing your best you can to help someone. If you can't help them you can't help them, but you should try. But
Right.
it's critical you return calls and
No, you
emails.
guys have done it the right way. You don't look and say, "Oh, that's not my district." They're not. You represent Dorchester, South Boston area. You're not an at-large counselor.
That's
Only
right.
that point.
I'm not at large.
So, MAMLEO is not on your district, but you've never not taken a call from anything that we need as far as assistance, or someone that we knew who needed help that maybe we weren't getting from otherwise. But with that said, the lines are loaded, Counselor. Let's take them in order. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Hi.
Rhodes calling.
Okay, go ahead, Rhodes. We'll take Rhodes first, and we'll grab the.
Oh, no, you can go. The lady can go first.
Okay, ladies first. Go ahead. Good morning. Welcome to the roundtable.
Good morning. Hi, thank you for having me.
Yes.
So I just wanted to talk about an incident that happened Thursday night in Needham. I witnessed firsthand, and it was so upsetting that I'm still crying about it, even to this day, right now, this morning. I just wanted to share everything that I witnessed. So I hope I can do this in order and properly without getting too frustrated. I was on my way to Sweet Basil in Needham, and I was on Highland Avenue. It was about 8:40 at night, Thursday night, and there was a huge situation in the middle of the road. There was about 10 cop cruisers, at least 10 cop cruisers, all had shut down the middle of the road. It was like at that intersection where there's a yield to come through to go towards like the main strip on Highland Avenue, Needham. So there was about 10 state troopers all shut down the middle of the road, and their floodlights were pointing directly at traffic so nobody could see what was going on. That, to me, is alarming because they're trying to shield and shade whatever they were doing. So there were people waiting for a while on the other side. The line of traffic was way down the street. Nobody could see what was going on.
Okay,
People
so-
in front of me.
Right. I don't want to cut you off. I'm just trying to figure out so what's your question of us, or how can we help you with that? 'Cause-
Oh, so how he could help me is basically there was a young man, and he was being attacked and like brutally abused by these cops. I got out of my car and I ran over to the scene to see what was happening. And right when I ran over to the scene, they picked him up and stood him up on foot and put him into the back seat of the cruiser. At this point, I don't even know if he was conscious or not, because they had literally been pulling and dragging him through. And I didn't notice if his feet were walking or shuffling. Yeah. They put him in the back seat of the car. I stood in front of the state trooper cruiser, and I just stood there with the person because I wanted him to know that he wasn't alone. And so then the state troopers were just walking by and acting as if I wasn't even there. Usually if there's that big of a scene with cops, they're doing their cop 101 duties, telling you, back up, stand away from the scene, who are you, what are you, you know?
Right. So I think we've got the crux of it. So one, I say, most people now, they have their phones, so they record this. Someone's wondering if you recorded any of this. Did you report this to any of the authorities in Needham?
Yes. Yes. I called the authorities in Needham, and I said I'd like information about the arrest that happened, and they said there was no arrest. You'd have to talk to the person's family. Okay. Which led me to believe they're concealing something.
Okay. So what
the cop car?
So let me just say, because what I'd like to do is I'm going to have Pastor Hobbs get back online with you, get your information, and I'd love to have a conversation with you offline about that, because we're in Boston, so I don't know all the particulars about that. So, and it would seem like it's a long, in-depth conversation. So I think without trying to rush,
it was related to the state troopers.
Okay, yeah. So if you hold on, Pastor Hobbs is gonna take your information and he's gonna get it for me, and then I will give you a call back at a later time. Okay.
And Larry, I think it's also when you have that conversation with her, I think that's a good move. And I can hear the frustration in her voice.
Absolutely.
Because she definitely needs someone to give her the attention to hear her out, and also guide her in the administration. Right. How that administration is organized for that department as opposed to Boston, as opposed to a town. Right. Because she needs to. There need to be, and I applaud her, by the way. And I often tell folks in today's society, with these cameras on your phone.
Right.
Record it.
Right.
And regardless what the officer tells you,
Right.
you have a right to do that recording on a public way.
but I
You
think-
have no problem with
Right,
that.
but I think this goes to what we were just identifying with Councilor Flynn, is that we're saying, oh, this is Needham, this is not, we're not saying this is not our problem. We're saying,
Exactly.
how can we help
How
you?
can we help you?
Right,
So,
we're going to take
so
information.
one of the ways we
that-
can do that is to educate her
Right.
on where to go in a
Exactly.
situation like
That's
this.
right. All right. So, ma'am, hold on, and Pastor Hobbs is going to take your information from you, okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we'll grab the next call. Good morning, Rhodes. Go ahead. You're up next. You have a
Good morning,
question?
gentlemen.
Yes.
I just wanted to say again. I don't know where the wager is between the Army and Navy gentlemen right there. But I'm not putting any bet.
Well, if I were you, I would bet on the guys in West Point. That's what I would do. But anyway, I'm just saying.
But did
Since
you have,
we are the old.
yeah, did you have a question or comment for the counselor?
Yeah, no. It's just basically my comment is to the counselor as far as like the fact that he's serving, and again, are you following your dad's footsteps? Wasn't your dad the mayor of the city as well?
Yes, my father was the mayor for 10 years, but, you know, I had as Dr. Bradley mentioned and Larry mentioned, I had the opportunity to serve in the U.S. Navy for 23, 24
Wow.
years. I'm retired now, but I wouldn't say that I'm following in his footsteps. I've had a career of my own is in the military. I also served 8 years as a probation officer at Superior Court. So I have my own career. I love my father, but I'm doing what I believe in and in my passion, and that's public service, the same as these gentlemen next to me on the left and the right. But I wouldn't necessarily call it following in his footsteps, though.
No, I think it's somewhat of a compliment he's paying. He's saying, you know, because your dad did an admirable job as the mayor.
Yep.
And that you have been in public service, from serving our country to serving in probation, and now at the council, that there's a natural procession of people looking for folks like yourself for leadership, right? We've seen the council has had quite a few issues. As a fact, there's a lot of new faces that are coming into the council, and a lot of frustration. I know Councilor Flaherty said one of the reasons that he wasn't running was because of the dysfunction that was taking place there. And historically, the Boston Globe, very liberal paper, when they called the council a clown show, I think that said quite a bit to folks who were paying
Well, I thought they were
attention.
talking about the Republican Party. But anyway, I'm sorry.
No.
I should have said that.
Right. Well, they were making the Republican Party look good. So, what do you see? I'm going to grab this. What do you see with the new faces? You've got what, four or five new councilors coming in?
Yeah, we do. We do have one. We have one gentleman from the Jamaica Plain area, Ben Weber.
Yes.
We have Enrique Pepin, Henry Santana, John Fitzgerald as well. So they're going to make a great addition to the council, to the new body, and they're professional, ethical, honest, and I think they're going to be hardworking and take the job seriously.
Yeah, well, Ben Weber, for full disclosure, was one of the attorneys in the litigation against the state and the city in that $40 million judgment for the discrimination. So he has a track record of fighting for equality and fairness.
Yep.
So I'm very happy to see someone of his caliber joining folks like yourself, and also Aaron Murphy, who's someone I've gotten to know over the years, who I found who is not afraid, as you are, of taking on issues. And this is where I was saying, where people want to make it seem like it's a race issue, it is a safety issue. Like the stance that you guys took about metal detectors in the schools and the safe. Well, we see there's very little learning taking place in our schools, and you can't learn in an environment that is not conducive with safety. And for you all to have the courage and then to be attacked and saying that it was racially motivated, I thought was so wrong. And that's why I felt like we need to see, because I see it every day. The last 2 weeks, the number of guns that have been taken off the school, 2 guns at one school in the same day, 14-year-old at the Up Academy, 14 years old, a loaded revolver, and people say, oh, it's business as usual. No, this is not. It should not be normalized that these weapons are anywhere near or around our young people. And say you can't walk into City Hall with a loaded gun, right?
No, we have metal detectors at City Hall. we need them in the school buildings. We need healthy schools. We need safe schools. And you're right. We've had many guns confiscated this year and last year, knives as well. But we need to have a comprehensive public safety plan for the schools, and that must include metal detectors that are working, that are plugged in, and there has to be a universal plan where it can't be an option, depending on the principal if they want to use them or they don't want to use them. I don't think we can take a chance with the.
Well, let me ask you a question. If you were flying out of Logan and you went through there and they said, "Oh, we just decided we're going to just not have the metal detectors, and we're not going to do a security check today because we don't want to offend anyone, or we don't," would you be comfortable?
I probably would be taking the train.
So before we get this call, we're going to bring this other caller in. Because now that there's a new shuffle, you're no longer going to be the president of the council, the new president. Are there, and if you're willing to disclose, are there any committees that you're interested in serving on as a chair?
There are committees that I'm interested in chairing. I haven't reached out or asked any particular candidate what committee that I'm interested in. I have made it a policy for me this time is to not ask for a specific committee. I'm gonna wait until the very end. I'm gonna let my colleagues, especially the new colleagues, take the committees that they're kind of that would make a match for them. But there are committees I would like to work on, and issues I would like to continue to work on. But I'm not going to ask the incoming president for a committee chair.
Yeah, and again, I promise you, caller, we're gonna get you, but I just wanted to piggyback on that. You know, last time we had you here in studio, you said something that Dr. Bradley and I both were our eyes went up when you said there was really no formal training for incoming counselors. And I thought that was really, I'm like, oh, wow. Has that, has that changed? Is there anything, it's not mandatory that they attend. I know you said you've had a session and not everyone attended. That's not mandatory. I want to know why, and any plans to change that? Because I think if you don't know how it works, how can you work in it?
We have mandatory courses or leadership, leadership, not courses. I wouldn't call them courses, but I would call them
classes?
Requirements.
Okay.
Yeah, that colleagues would have to take, such as sexual harassment, such as
ethics, right?
Ethics, anti-bullying, lobbying, but they're not training per se. But we do need a training program, a design training program. We don't have one, and that has hurt the body over the years, because the incoming freshmen it takes a while for them to adjust to the new environment, the political environment, and how to navigate constituent services, neighborhood services. But also I do some work with a group called the National League of Cities, and did some training with them on civility in government. And that's lacking, not just in Boston, but across the country.
Yes.
and we see it every day. Not here, we see it in every city. And I talk to colleagues across the country, and council members or selectmen or town spokesmen, mayors. But there's a lot of turmoil. There's a lot of mental health challenges for the public, but also for elected officials as well. And that balance of how to deal with the public, how to communicate our message, how to engage the public, and how the public engages elected officials. We're not there, and I think the divisive comments coming from, in my opinion, from President Trump over the years has hurt the civility of elected officials in the public. So it's almost like a free-for-all. You can fire fastballs at each other, and then the elected officials feel defensive,
right,
and they don't know how to respond other than being on the
and you're right to that point. And caller, I promise you're next. Is that historically we have disagreed on issues and policies, but this is to a different level. It is just a vitriol of hatred, and just because of who you are the enemy, and that is a real transformation. I tell people Donald Trump is a symptom. He's not the cause, because there are millions of people who support and follow someone like that. That says something about the country as much as it does about the individual. Caller, you've been very patient. I want to thank you. Good morning. You have any comments or questions for the Council President, Ed Flynn?
I have two questions. My first question is, as a strong believer in democracy and two-term limits, what's his thoughts or ideas of having two-term limits for every politician across the board? Because last time I checked, the founding fathers, even though they were all white, didn't envision career politicians to be in there for life, both the local, state, and federal. My second question is, what would the councilor do to keep black people living and working in the city by expanding the home ownership from 3 years to 6 years? Because 3 years isn't long enough to get the resources necessary to buy a home.
So the first question was on term limits, and the second one, if I'm understanding it, had to do with home ownership. And I'm not sure if you could give me a little bit of meat on the bone. You're talking about city employees or just people in general being able to get a home, and because the caveat to that is that it has been a huge hindrance of hiring and retention of people in the city, because Boston has become very expensive to live in. And I know I talk to people who they go on the website and they look at city posted jobs and the salaries, and then they look at what it costs to own a home here. The average price is over $700,000, and rent is over $3,000 for a 1 or 2 bedroom, depending on the parts of the city. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. How do we get that balance here? We want the city requires residency for most jobs. At least with the police and fire and some others, you can move out after a certain time, but you still have to get your foot in the door. So the first question on term limits, what's your take on that?
Well, let me speak about term limits as it relates to city elections, city offices. I would agree with the caller, term limits for mayor and term limits for city council. Maybe it's 8 years total, which would be four terms as a city council and 2 terms as mayor. I think that's appropriate. New York City has term limits for the office of mayor. I'm not sure about New York City Council, but I would support term limits for city councilors and the mayor in Boston. As it relates to federal, I don't know how you would enforce that or work on that. It would have to be across the board, across the country. You couldn't just have it here.
So to interrupt you, so on the city level, would that be a ballot question, or who would if the caller was looking to initiate some action to get that in place, right? Term limits for the mayor and the city council. Is that something that the voters would have to pass, or is that something that the city council could pass that?
I believe it would be a comprehensive strategy to do it, and that would include a vote of the city council, followed up by the signature of the mayor and approval, and then it would have to go up to the state house for the state legislator to vote on it, to approve it, and then I believe the governor would have to sign it, so we could basically change the rules of city elections in Boston. We would need state approval for that.
So now one of the recent elections, not this one, several years ago, the residents here in the city of Boston voted to have an elected school committee. Overwhelmingly, they voted to have that. Where is that? Because I think it's a good segue to the caller's question. Because even when we do vote for things to change, they don't change. Do you know where that is, as far as where the process is for that vote that the voters took to have an elected school committee here in the city of Boston, and still has? I know the mayor has a lot of say in that.
Yeah, the mayor has a lot of say on what the school committee will look like. The voters did approve that ballot referendum overwhelmingly. So right now it hasn't received the attention probably that it deserves, and I think it's the the community, it's the residents, they voted on something, but I don't think they've provided the necessary follow-up.
Yeah.
Engaging in the city council, city council is of what the next step in the process is and how does this be implemented. I'm not saying that anyone's at fault, but I think it has stalled and it hasn't moved anywhere other than that vote in favor of it several years ago.
But how does I mean, this is just my I can't figure my head around this. So the citizens vote for it, and it becomes an overwhelming support, and it gets to the city government, and there's no apparatus to move it forward.
And
How
to
does that happen with
to that point is that with all of the problems that we're seeing in the schools, that people don't see the the school committee as an independent body. They see them as operatives of the mayor because they're appointed by the mayor, and it's the only city school committee in the Commonwealth that is not elected.
So how does the citizenry or the citizens who are voting are the boss then, and when they're saying this is what we want, but once it gets to the people to make the change, it just stops?
I think there's some other issues in play that are not discussed about this. I think the impact the city councilors have had over the last several years with their unprofessional conduct, with their ethical challenges.
Okay.
I think people saw that, and elected officials also saw that. And so what we would do is take out an appointed school committee, appointed by the mayor, vetted by the mayor's legal team, but also would change that and put in elected officials in the school committee that may or may not have the best interest of the children as their top priority. I think residents saw that and elected officials saw that, but I also think what you're seeing now in city politics, you're seeing the role of PACs, Political Action Committee. You could have a major PAC now in the city of Boston donate to, or not donate, but support a candidate behind the scenes, basically, and invest $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 for a school committee race. So whether you're pro-charter school or anti-charter school,
I got you.
You could have a pro-charter school
I got you.
or anti-charter school putting $300,000 in support of a particular candidate. That candidate will win.
Right.
Especially these low elections where 14% of the voters vote, or 15, 16%. These PACs could have a major significant impact.
The lines are loaded. I'm going to get to your calls, I promise. A quick question. Can you explain to our listening audience, because in the last election, there were some changes to the council's power. Can you explain to people, does the city council have more power now, and what that looks like and what that is and what the ability, because people felt like the council, once they passed the budget, they were pretty much out of it, and then the mayor, they just kind of rubber stamped it, or maybe they had some resolutions but no real teeth. Have those changes empowered the council to have more oversight and check? Because Boston is probably one of the few cities that has a mayoral strong administration, and the council really, once they pass the budget, they kind of watch what the mayor does with it. What's the changes in?
I think that has changed significantly over the years. The city council has a lot of power, influence, not only at the budget, but in these city issues impacting the residents. The brick vote was controversial, $3 million, but the city council sat on that funding for 3 years, I believe. Whether you agree with it or disagree with it, but it's an example of what the city council can do or can't do.
So let me say, so previously you would not have had the authority of the council to hold that money and delay it. But with the changes, the council had the input to be able to hold on and oversight of that fund, of the funds.
I'm not certain about that, but what I do know is the body itself has more legislative influence over city issues. It's about working with the mayor's administration, but there's also a participatory budget process now. There's the Community Preservation Act that was implemented really through Councilor Michael Flaherty and Councilor Andrea Campbell, who's now the Attorney General. But the City Council, if you take the job seriously, you can have power. If you're not interested in helping people and in getting involved in city issues and laying back, then you can support the status quo. But there is influence for the city councilors in a positive way if they want to use it.
And to your point there, that dysfunction that we saw at the city council, we're now seeing in Congress. So that discord that you talked about when you said it, I'm like, wow. I mean, it really very little gets done when folks just becomes a personality complex rather than working for the people who are there. They're said they're running their charge with. So we're gonna grab that call. Like I said, you've got the lines lit up this morning. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the round table with MAMLEO with City Council President Ed Flynn. Good morning, caller.
I'm still here.
Oh, okay. No, there was another call. Okay. Pamela?
Yes, good morning.
Good
How
morning.
are you?
Good morning. How are you, Pamela? Welcome to the broadcast.
I'm doing great. I was just calling concerning a public letter that we have sent to the City Council and the Mayor concerning the People's Academy and the ability for the People's Academy to stop and be a solution to the murder triangle, which is 90% of the deaths in the last few years have been in Dorchester, Mattapan, and Roxbury. And these are people that the People's Academy can train for apprenticeship in the trade construction business. And we are wondering why, when the public benefit package for the Millennial Towers was allocated, they allocated $100 million to Boston Commons, Franklin Park, Emerald Necklace, Boston Housing Authority, Boston Housing, East Boston Housing Authority, and South Boston Housing Authority, and the Rose Kennedy Greenway. Not one penny of that.
Okay. So
$100 million.
I get the right. So I get the right. So I get the gist of your question. I'll let the counselor. So she was saying there's some funding that went out. The People's Academy has been looking for funding. People's Academy, for folks who don't know, T. Michael Thomas. It's a training opportunity for employment at very good wages considering the cost of living here in Boston. And it trains folks who probably would not have the opportunity to get that skill set of training. And she's saying, I know we support the People's Academy. We've been working with them as to why they were left out of this funding. Is that your question?
Yes, and also that Millennial Partners had promised diversity by funding People's Academy, and that's why People's Academy testified for the approval of the Winter Towers. And after Millennial Partners promised to fund 4 years so that the People's Academy could train black people for diversity. They did not give them any funding whatsoever, and that was a promise at the hearing in 2018.
Okay. Well, I'll let him have a shot at answering.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I'm familiar with the issue. I had the opportunity to visit T. Michael and in the apprenticeship program, and I thought it was an excellent program, but what I know is I don't know the full details about the vote and what was promised, but I can try to look into it and see who made that promise to T. Michael and to see why that promise was made or who made it and what the follow-up was. But overall, the bigger picture, there should be a presence of a facility in the heart of the black community that is providing training, apprenticeship training in the building trades at the African American community. there's a building boom in this city, especially in the South Boston waterfront, the downtown area. And the caller is right. There's not many African American workers on these sites. It's improving, but it's not enough.
Yeah.
But the issue of getting men and women of color into the building trades is critical, and it's not a job. It's a career. It's a career with benefits, and if you're willing to work hard and to go through this apprenticeship training program and work 50, 60 hours a week for your family, then there should be a place for people in this economy.
No, and I thank you for flagging that, and also I think, like I said, to support that. This is why, like I said, coming up at our 9 o'clock hour, Senator Nick Collins is going to be calling in, is because he's been another one that's been advocating. I have gotten more support during my time as president of MAMLEO from folks like yourself and Senator Collins, and getting notified about job opportunities and growth, and actually watching and investing in those communities and trying to get services to those folks. But they want, and then there were other caucuses that are, by their name and sake alone, are charged with supposedly doing these things, and I never get a call back. So to the caller, I think the push really, I almost say you're preaching to the choir, actually, with people like Councilor Flynn and Senator Collins, when we're talking about these, because they are trying to do what they can, but there has to be a movement from the community as well, right? Because T. Michael's, this struggle should, like, what is the budget for the city of Boston?
It's over $3 billion.
Almost $4 billion, right? And a third of that, 1.4 billion almost, goes to the schools, right? With a declining population, no real improvement in the success. So they would almost would say that, and as you said, all the prosperity that is taking place and the growth in the Boston, I'm used to be able to look over on the highway and see the rest of the city. The skyline is changing dramatically, right? Everywhere that you can. So I don't think Boston has a financial problem. It's an allocation problem of who gets access to funding. And this is, in my opinion, is a worthwhile project that really hasn't gotten the financial support that it needs to train up.
And that's the real problem.
Yeah.
See, the who gets access to it, because I don't see why you can't put a caveat in a situation like that to say that X amount of these funds should go to a particular situation. We can do it in a police contract. We can say, an extra amount of this service is going to be given to one particular individual.
Yeah.
Why can't we have in the request for proposal stage that you have drafted into that particular document that an extra amount of these resources would go to employment, would go to people of color, or you would have money going to an entity like T. Michael Thomas.
Right, but to that point, you need also to be educated on how you or to access to someone who knows how to write an RFP, a proposal, because those are very tricky, and if it's not done properly, a lot of times people don't get denied for trying to get denied for they don't have the right information in there, or they don't have the right. So
I got it.
So that's
and you're absolutely on target. But when you have someone who writes it well, that could be included. I mean, because I live in Randolph. But I have family. I have kids here in Boston
that would benefit from.
That would benefit from this. And so when I go to, my entertainment is in Boston. So when I see things, constructions in the seaport, my wife was there down, and I was with the snowport at the seaport, and you walking around, it's like, where all this? I used to patrol that area back in the 90s. Like, what happened to all this? But how many people? And Boston is a very multicultural city. So why do we not have that multiculturalism?
It is until it comes to the economic. Then it's a little bit more.
Know what I would recommend for the People's Academy, and I've been hearing the debate for many years. I would, if I were in charge in supervising this, I would say, in terms of T. Michael, what I would do is organize candidate forums. During the election.
I like that.
Citywide city councils, district city councils, ask them to come to a candidates forum specifically on People's Academy. Ask elected officials what their position is on funding for People's Academy and what they're going to do. about advocating for it if they get elected. But I think just getting engaged once in a while or talking on this is important, this is an important call, and I respect the call, but I think it has to be a process of
a marathon, not a sprint.
And being organized
Yes.
and putting elected officials on the spot, holding them accountable, and not voting for them if they're not supporting you. I think that's the problem we have throughout the city is we support people, and then after the election, we can't find them.
And we don't hold them accountable. Thank you, caller.
May I just interject that, Mr. May I interject one thing, please? Mr. T. Michaels did do that for this existing election that just happened, and he has at-large candidates saying that they will support him. So that has been done.
So here's what
right now,
right. So here's what I do, because I actually am for full disclosure, I am now on T. Michael's board. We need to do a follow up. So let's you and I get together with T. Michael after this, next week sometime, and let's do a follow up on this. The council just gave us some good advice on a follow up on this, and let's do our part to hold folks accountable by holding ourselves accountable. For
you said you want me and Team
yes,
Michael to
exactly. So have you guys reach out, okay? So we're trying to find solutions here this morning.
Well, can I just ask one quick question?
Sure, go ahead. We got
a counselor. Was there a RFP for the allocation that went from Millennial Partners to the City of Boston for their public benefit package? That with all of those allocations that I just mentioned, was there an RFP for those?
I don't have the answer for you on that.
Wow, an honest politician.
That's very rare.
Could you get the answer for it, sir? Could you get the answer?
Yes, I will find the answer. If you want to call my office on Tuesday, the end of the day Tuesday, I'll have an answer for you.
All right. Thank you.
God bless you. God bless you.
See, this is what I'm talking about, the type of cooperation. This is why, I'm very staunch supporter of the counselor and his family and folks on doing the work, not what their zip code is. So before we let you go, because I know there's been a lot of talk about the Boston Police Patrolman's contract that came out. One of the things there, I know Dr. Bradley is in there. There's language in there as far as, and there's a lot in there. But what struck out a lot of people was that the detail, the new structuring of how details are going to be for retirees. But then there was at the bottom is the company former police commissioner Ed Davis, and there's a lot of talk that people are saying that there were hearings about the lack of opportunities for people of color to be flagmen and stuff, and they're wondering how is it that this individual Ed Davis is particularly named in this contract as one of the people with an opportunity,
providing
a lucrative opportunity to provide that there was no bid or anything. Is how is he the only one that has an opportunity to put out details, work in the detail system?
So he was part of the process of working with the city administration and the patrolman to discuss the detail pay and policy. But I also know that Ed Davis was also on the selection committee for the commissioner as well. I know he has a lot of influence in the city administration.
Yeah, too much in some people's mind, because it seems to be a conflict there.
Well, see, one of the things that struck me when I read, first of all, I'm a retired cop.
Yeah.
So over the last for 13 years, I can't believe the time. So my wife just recently retired, and because she'll be a part of this contract because she retired in March.
Yeah.
So she got the email. And she read it to me, and I said, whoa, time out. 30B kicked in my head. That's the first thing that kicked in was, where's 30B here in terms of bidding? 30B is the law that said that services have to be bidded out to so on and so forth. But my point here is that if we have organizations like T. Michael Thomas organization who's trying to do this broad thing here as it relates to training the community, but in the contract you have this one individual who never walked the streets of Boston as a patrolman, who can provide these services how does that level of money goes to that one individual
Yeah.
without a 30B type bidding process, and not to other officers who may have retired,
Yeah.
who now have a security
Right.
firm, who may be able to offer the same service? That's all my question is.
Right.
Do we know how much the contract was for?
Well, the thing is, it's going to be based on the number of details that are available.
No, I'm saying the
oh,
contract with Ed Davis.
That's what I'm saying. Is that
Okay,
it will be
okay.
based
We
on a
don't
number
know.
of details.
Yeah.
It's hard to
Okay.
gauge it
Yeah,
because
I know where you're going, because there's a certain limit.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, if
And
there's a
we're-
certain dollar amount
Yeah.
that you're required to, as you're talking about, Dr. Bradley, to put this out to bid,
Yeah.
and you need to get 2 or 3 companies that would bid on it,
Right.
professional companies, then the city would.
Gentlemen, we've got to go.
That's correct. That's correct.
You've been listening to at the round table with MAMLEO.
Already?
Yes. We're going to take our break. We'll be right back.
Yeah, I had that when I was.
Flex who you are, then you's a coward. I can see through the lies you ain't living what you spitting. If your money's so long, why your dog's in prison? Why your baby mom's stripping? Why your mom's still living in that same broken home that you used to sell piffin'? You ain't gotta lie to me to sell me a track. You ain't gotta rock fake jewels or walk around strap. I respect artists getting money, but love them for spitting crack. And the fact that one track can move a family out the trap. It's a dream for us lost souls brought up in the mix. I'm motivated by the artists coming out in my midst. And the artists that paved the way when I didn't exist. Music's a skyscraper, I'm just trying to add a couple bricks.
This is for the dreamers. They say I am a dreamer. Cause I still believe that anything is possible as long as you work hard. Hustle real hard, hustle real hard. Hustle real hard, hustle so if I never see ya, never get the chance to meet ya. No, I came up from the bottom, always